An hour with
Perfect.
Jonas Saul. So Rachel Jones is asking, can you talk about your start in self-publishing and your decision to transition to a traditional publisher?
Okay, so absolutely. How it started for me was I was writing a lot and getting very serious with my writing in the late 90s. And in year 2000 area, I had a couple of novels done. And so I started querying my novels to agents in New York and thereabouts. I collected a lot of rejection letters. And so I thought, well, I'll write another novel and try with that one. And I'll write another and try with that. By 2004, I hadn't gotten an agent. I was really just wanting to do traditional. And so long story short, I started going to writers' conferences to meet agents and pitch directly in front of them. And it just wasn't working out. My Sarah Roberts series was what I was pitching, and Dark Visions book one, it wasn't selling. So by 2006 and 8, I put it through some more edits, get it better, and I kept working. And finally, by 2010, we're talking almost a decade now of trying to sell this, going to New York, going to conferences. I couldn't sell it. So I thought, maybe I'm just not good enough. I don't know. It was 10 years and I couldn't get anywhere with this. So I thought, I'm just going to self-publish this, get it out in the world and see what happens. So in February 2011, I uploaded my books. By that time, I had 5 novels and a book of short stories. So I self-published completely. When I did it, though, I took it quite serious. I was a business owner already. I was in retail for 20 years and I owned several stores. And so I took this as a business and I invested in proper editing, covers. I did what I thought was the right thing to do. And so I couldn't get into traditional. So I went the self-publishing route. Now, when my books went online, people started reading them. I promoted them to some degree. They started to read them. Word of mouth took over. And within a couple of months, I was selling thousands of copies. Within a year and a half, I had sold my first 1,000,000 copies. And by 2012, 13, I was making more money than I ever made before. So I just kept self-publishing. I got a call from Hollywood by late 2013, an agent in Hollywood who wanted to turn one of my Sarah Roberts series into a movie. So I started pitching in LA. By 2016, I had literary agents calling me. I had over 2 million sold and I had an offer from Sony Pictures. At this time, I still don't have an agent. I was doing everything on my own, flying in and out of Los Angeles, pitching studios, Lionsgate, Legendary Pictures, all the Sony, Universal, and Sony put an offer in. And now I'm thinking, you know what, I kind of need an agent. And I ended up getting some emails from agents and I chose one. And I chose one because at the level I had gotten to as a self-publisher, getting to the next level really helps if you have an agent because they can put you into the big 5. They can put you into many different places and even help negotiate your contracts, things I felt I was capable enough to do, but they have more experience with that. So I chose to go with an agent summer of 2016. And I ended up getting within a few days of signing, I ended up getting a new contract that was worth huge amounts of money. I was really happy with that contract. And my agent has gone on to do wonderful things for me. And so I'll never look back. I'll always be agented now, but I'm also a hybrid author. I still self-publish because I write so much. I still self-publish almost every other book that I write and give my agent a new book every 3 to 6 months kind of thing. So, and if she can't sell it, if it doesn't sell or it's languishing, I can self-publish it because I have enough readers that can grab my stuff. I've got books. One publisher has a book coming out next year. They've already got it. I'm waiting for their editor to send me back edits. I've got another one. There's lots happening. So I'll always be hybrid now. If that has answered your question, great. If it hasn't, further up at another question there.
Okay, so we have a list of questions. I'm going to start with a more recent one because it's related to the same vein that you've already been speaking about. From Caitlin, how did you promote your books initially to gain an audience?
Initially, we're talking a different era because in 2009 and 10, blogs were a pretty big thing. So I was a guest blogger on many sites, a site called Right to Done. I think they're still around. But blogs aren't as big as they were 10 years, 12 years ago. So I was doing a lot of blogging and a lot of guest blogging, talking about the writing process, talking about my work. I was even had a blog I was writing on all the time, and it was getting a lot. There were times where I was getting 3,000 hits a day. So that was the initial beginning. After that, I went on to sites like BookBub, Book Gorilla, and to this day, I still have a profile. For instance, BookBub. If you go to BookBub and look up an author, Jonas Saul, you'll see I'm almost at 12,000 followers. 12,000 people who have hit the follow button on BookBub to follow me. So every time I have a book come out, they get an email. 12,000 emails go out to these people. BookBub handles all that for you for free. You don't have to do anything. It's all free. The only time BookBub charges is if you want to get into their email. So there's lots of places like those that offer you a profile. So the other thing is, when you put up your books on Amazon, they give you an author page. It's Author Central. And so I put in there, my bio and so on, but I push to get people to hit the follow button on my author page also, because when I have a new release come out, Amazon sends them an email too. By the way, just so you know, when you set these things up, make sure you follow yourself. So then when everyone's getting an email, you get one too. So you're kept in the loop of when these places are sending out emails. So that's a lot of what I did, but there's a couple other quick things I do. Once I started seeing readers loving my work, they would message me and email me. And then I've had quite a few that were, I've gone through the whole, back in the early days when I only had 3 or 4 Sarah Roberts books. I've read them all. When's the next one? When's the next one? And so by book 5, I started adding readers' names to my books as characters. And I do this for free. And I usually try to add 2, 3, or even 5 names per book. And what happens is I put on Facebook or somewhere on social media, Twitter, thank you so much to, Joe Smith, John so-and-so, Mary so-and-so for being guests as in my novel. I really appreciate it. Well, what happens when that book comes out? Those readers who love my work are freaking out. They put up on their Facebook, oh my goodness, one of my favorite authors has allowed me to be a guest in his novel. And then I've actually had people go out and buy multiple copies to hand out to all their family and friends. They're advertising it to all of their social media. I think that's a really good thing to do, and really get in touch with your reader and have a lot of fun with them. And then I do contests, like as I travel a lot. So I would go to Rome, and because I'm currently living in Greece. And I would go to Rome, and I'd say, who wants a postcard from Rome? So I'd get 100 addresses through my private message on Facebook. And I would go to Rome and I'd buy 100 postcards and fire them off in the mail all around the world, to Australia, Britain, the US, Canada. And, when those postcards when they get to these readers, they take pictures of it and say, oh my goodness, Jonas Saul, the author Sarah Roberts, sent me a postcard, and it's personalized, So these are some of the things I really do. And I love to, online just said something about receiving a postcard. I really love to do those kinds of things for my readers, because I have genuine concern for them. And I really love my readers because, where would we be without them? So those are some of the things I do. There's another half a dozen things I do off the top of my head, but Christmas cards is another one I send out to readers. I do contests where I couldn't come up with a title, and I had 3 or 4 options. So I did a contest on my social media for my readers to, vote on the titles. And then if they won, they would get $50 gift card to Barnes and Noble, or if you're in Canada, Indigo. So I do all these things too, because, it's always good to have some write-offs. And so I love giving money back to my readers.
Wow, that's incredible. I had no idea about the personalization of your marketing. That is just brilliant. And yeah, you're cultivating fans. So this it's like an Ouroboros. So Jonas, there's another question here from Lou. Hi, Jonas. Did COVID affect your writing or writing habits? And will you incorporate COVID into your books?
I at this point, I would say I'm going to answer the second part first. At this point, I would say that I am not incorporating COVID into my books at any time. I mean, not to say that I won't have a pandemic in one of my books one day, although I'm not Robin Cook. I mean, I do more thriller, cops and robbers and bad guys. But COVID itself, if I do, it would be a decade from now. COVID it has hit the world in such a way that it has so much negativity attached to it, whether you're a vaxxer or an anti-vax, whether you're a masker, you're an anti-masker, whether you're going to, there's all the quarantines. I mean, in Greece, we had a 6-month quarantine where we were locked in for 6 months here. Not to mention a 4-month one before that. So we've had over 1 year where we've been locked in accumulatively. So will I include it into a novel? I at this point, I have declined to do that. How did it affect my writing? All it did was allow me to write more. I mean, I was always home. And so I got lots done. A lot of editing. I'm an editor too for a publisher, and I also have freelance editing I do. So I've had a lot of clients who are writing more and giving me novels. So I would be working my word count in the morning and editing most nights. And I wasn't going out. Like, we wouldn't go to dinner, or we wouldn't, you can't even go out and have a cup of coffee somewhere because it was all quarantine. Everything was shut. Restaurants were closed. So, I got a lot of work done. So it did affect my writing, but in a positive way.
Great. So I'm actually kind of glad that the whole COVID thing can be avoided. I think I agree with you, and we don't need that as a reminder going forward for the next few years. I don't think anyone really wants to hear about that. Anyways, it's just overkill. We're all struggling with the fatigue. So another question, this one from Lisa. Recently, a published writer said, if you don't start writing early, don't bother, as publishers are only interested in young writers who will have a long career, time enough for publishers to recover their investment. Is this at all true?
Well, you know what? In my opinion, no, it's not. Here, I'll tell you why. There is some truth to it, but let me explain. Publishers generally don't invest in a novel. They invest in an author. So that part is true. And if you're writing a book and you're, I don't know, 85, 90 years old, you may have some more challenges than a 20-year-old would have. Okay, I understand that at that end of the spectrum. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm in my 50s. And I didn't really start in this market until I was in my 40s. But not just talking about me. I mean, there's a lot of people starting at 60, 65, 70 who have written their first book. At the end of the day, you got to write a good book. If you write a good book, it's in top shape. It's been edited professionally. It's got tension on every page. It's got emotional stakes, whatever your genre may be. Your book is in great shape. You're ready to go. You put it in front of a publisher. They look at it and they say, "Oh my goodness, this is the next Gone Girl. This is the next, Kite Runner, or name another bestseller. The Girl on the Train. This is the next book." Then they're not going to worry how old you are. They're going to take it. So I don't think that you should let anything limit you. In my opinion, you really. At the end of the day, what is a limit but a doubt? And I don't believe in doubts. I don't have any doubts. I started in this business years ago when I was writing my first novel, and now I've written 42 novels, and I've got multiple deals, multiple contracts, and I make a living, and I travel the world doing this. But I had no doubt I would do it. It's not being cocky or overconfident. It's what I wanted, and I wouldn't allow fear or doubt to stop me. So if this is what you want, you'll get it. You just have to want it bad enough. And there are going to be walls put in front of you, but they're not meant to stop you. They're just meant to see how hungry you are.
So true. And if you don't believe in yourself, who will? And this makes a good segue. We were chatting at some point, I believe, about the idea of creating a persona. And in regards to believing in yourself, you have to market yourself. And I think, as you referred it to, as branding. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I really believe in branding. And I think that everything is branded. I mean, FedEx truck, UPS trucks, they're all the same color. You know what they look like. Everything's a brand, and it's a subconscious tattoo in your brain. When you see a UPS truck, you know what it looks like. Back in the early 90s, Levi's 501 were the big thing. Everything's branded. So what I did was, as Jonas Saul, when I came out onto the market, I wanted to brand myself. So I completely set it all up. I mean, I went to some people, I might have went overboard because I incorporated a publishing company because I was going to self-publish. I didn't want to going on Amazon and saying, sold by Amazon Services or self-published. I wanted to just look like it was. So I incorporated a company called Imagine Press. And so every book that I self-published said Imagine Press was publishing it. And so to the casual Amazon shopper, it didn't look self-published. At least I didn't think so. And it's funny because I'll get back to the branding thing for a moment, but let me confirm that comment. I got some emails from a group who wanted to do an interview with me on a podcast. And this was a 2014-15 area. So we get onto this podcast. And at the time I was ranking in the top 20, top 10 of the horror genre on Amazon. And I had just outranked Stephen King, and I've got pictures to prove it. But anyway, I had just outranked him. And I get these emails for these interviews. So I do this interview and I'm in the middle of this 1-hour podcast interview. And they asked me who my agent was or my publisher. And I said, oh, I don't have an agent. At the time I didn't. I said, I'm self-published. And they gasped and there was this big pause. Oh, we're sorry. We only talked to, agented published authors. We had no idea. And I thought, what a great compliment. I was so moved by that. But the interview continued and that was the end of it. And they posted it. But the point is, my branding looked that professional. See, here's the difference. This is what people get stuck on. It's not self-published or traditional. It's professional and unprofessional. If you look professional enough, you look traditional. You have to look professional. Everything you do, even your pricing. So when it comes to what Jennifer mentioned a moment ago about persona or branding, I branded myself in a way that I looked like I was coming out of New York. And this is what I thought. This is what I wanted. So for instance, cover art. What I did when I started with my first book, Dark Visions, and I had Dark Visions, The Warning, The Crypt, the first 3 of the Sarah Roberts series. I spent, a few weeks studying cover art. I went to all the thrillers. I grabbed all the Lee Child books. I grabbed all the covers off Amazon and started studying them, mapping them out. What are the similarities with Stephen King, Dean Koontz from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s? What are they doing? How are they changing? I made so many notes on covers. So finally I came up with this idea that a thriller author, their name, literary, the name is smaller, and the title's bigger. But with thriller, the author's name takes up 30, 40, or 50% of the cover's real estate. So if you look at my covers online, Jonas Saul covers the whole top of the book. Then there's a little picture. Then it just says The Crypt. And under that in small, Sarah Roberts book 3. It's the Jonas Saul was the brand. So I had to make sure that was what they saw in the little icon with a little picture on Amazon. They had to see that right away. So that's just the cover. I mean, it took so long to come up with cover art to make sure it looked professional. So anyway, I just really think that everything you do with self-publishing has to look like it's traditional to sell, because there's a lot of readers out there that they want quality work. And I pay a lot of money for my editing, and I make sure that, there's a new book I just had come out called The Drowning. I've got a really dear friend of mine who I totally respect in this industry out of Portland, Oregon. I'd gone to a conference there once. And this friend of mine, Rick, he's reading The Drowning right now. And he's messaging me every other day, commenting on certain chapters and all these different things. And he keeps telling me, he's like 25 chapters in. He's like, I still haven't found a typo. And, this is what I do. I have a team of editors, a team of beta readers. Everything has to be professional. When it's all done, I reread it again. We go slow. We read the book backwards to make sure you don't get lost in the story, to make sure that you can see every word, every line. You just can't let anything slip when you're self-publishing. When you've got a publisher, they handle all that.
Wow, that is so intense and so informative. I had no idea that your connection with your fans is absolutely incredible. I just have to say it. So we have another question. This one is from Online for Authors. If you're interested in attracting a publisher, what are the top things to be mindful of?
Well, there's 2 parts to that, I think. In my opinion, there's 2 kinds of publishers, ones that only deal with agents and small publishers. or other publishers, not always small, that you can approach, like Bookouture. I hope I'm saying their name right. Bookouture, you can submit to them directly or with an agent. Kensington, I think you can go without an agent to Kensington. Don't quote me on that, but there are several publishers you could reach out to without an agent. And if that is your goal, I've never done that. So I don't know how qualified I am to answer that. I've self-published, and everything else I've sent to my agent. So I've never reached out to a publisher myself. Part of the reason is, and you know what, no disrespect to small publishers, I think they're doing a wonderful job. I didn't want a small publisher because I am one when I self-publish. I am my own self-publisher, my own small publisher. So I'm going to get my 70% royalties from Amazon directly to me if I self-publish, and I can run it like a company, which is what I do. And I've often likened that to opening a restaurant. You need a sign, you need stock, you've got to do some advertising. Well, when I put my first book out, I needed a book cover, I needed to do advertising, and the stock I needed was the money I would spend on editing and so on. So I run my own company. I have my own small press. So I would never go to a small publisher myself. But, that's not to say that they don't have their own use. Now, if you're going to approach these people directly, I think that you need a lot of what we just discussed. You need branding. You need some kind of hook. Your book has to be edited. It has to, in my opinion, it has to be professionally edited, not self-edited by the author. An author will always look, I'm an editor and I edit other people's work, and I have references on my website, and I think I'm a pretty decent editor, but I miss my own mistakes in my own novels all the time. And I have no idea how I miss them. None whatsoever. I mean, I'll get work back from my editor, and how did I miss that split infinitive? Or why am I starting that sentence with a present participle? I know that it denotes simultaneous action, and I've screwed up the whole grammar of this sentence. And I have to rewrite the whole thing. My editor's like, why are you doing that? I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, I can't edit my own work very well. Even after all that's done, my beta reader still finds stuff. So that being said, you have to put your best foot forward. And that involves everything from editing to presentation to being professional. I really believe that you've got to reach out to a publisher with your best foot forward. And I hate query letters. And now I've done so many of them in my life, so I don't do them anymore. As I say, I have an agent, and she does all the reaching out to publishers for me. So I hope I've answered that to some degree. But as I said, I qualified it early. I have never done that. So I just know that you have to put your best foot forward.
Wow, that's incredible. So I totally get, it's that blind spot when you don't want to edit your own work, and you can see some things, but some things you just can't see because it's your baby kind of thing. But along this vein, I do want to mention that Jonas does editing, and he offers editing, and his rates are very affordable, and who could be more brilliant but Jonas? Jonas, can you tell us about that?
Sure. I love editing. I love helping other people get to their the new position in the process of publishing. I've edited many renowned thriller authors. Stacey Green on Amazon has 20 books now, and she's got a great publishing contract. I've edited many of hers. I've worked with Dwayne Clayton, who also works on some of my books, who's great at picking up things I miss. You know what? I do all kinds of things, from developmental edits where I'll read the novel through and talk about pace, tension. I'll even grade each chapter to okay, I started to notice it slowed down here. But here's the thing, though. When I'm editing, I don't just say, here's the problem, can you fix it? I don't believe in that. I say, here's the issue. Let me show you here's your 2 or 3 options on how to fix it. You need more action. You need something happening here. Dialogue is a form of action. So why don't we insert a couple of lines here? Or, you have too many speech tags. So let's remove some of them and, have somebody do a movement or have a drink in their hand. There's something happening. So there's lots of different ways to get the forward motion, something happening on every page. But the important thing is you have to have tension of some kind, because conflict is the source of reader interest. Conflict is the source of reader interest. And I say it twice because I think a lot of writers forget that on, almost on every page, you have to have something happening. A character has to want something, like Kurt Vonnegut. One of his rules says a character has to want something, even if it's a glass of water. Your characters have to need, want, or desire something, and it's your job to not give it to them, causing tension. And, the tension, in my opinion, has to be emotional tension, or you're raising the stakes. Those stakes have to be emotional. It's going to hurt the character, or they're going to have a breakup, or someone's going to die, and they can't afford that to happen. So these are the kinds of things a novel has to have. Now I'm talking a lot of thriller, but every genre, if you're writing fiction, has to have some elements of these things per page. So when I do my edits, I make sure that 3 or 4 pages don't go by where we're just chatting in a car about Sunday afternoon. And then that's too slow. So we work on why that's too slow and try and fix that. Backstory shouldn't have backstory till at least page 50. There's things like that. Sometimes I'll see backstory on chapter 2, and we're talking about a character I don't even know yet. Readers have to be invested emotionally in the novel before they want to read anything about your character. John Grisham said you have 20 to 30 pages, 30 to 40 pages to create a hook. And once you've created that hook, you can go into backstory all you like, but you got to get the hook first. So that's a lot of things I look at when I do developmental. Otherwise, I do line edits, proofreading, copy editing. Those are the even easier ones, because now I'm just reading the novel and fixing where there's a missing period or quotation mark or spelling or whatever. Because, a lot of times spelling is an issue. Somebody will type ridged instead of rigid, and there's no Grammarly or something that would pick that up. A human has to pick that up. And in addition to that, one key thing, sorry, I'm going on too long about this, but in addition to that, I also edit for American English versus Canadian, when I recommend you should be in American English for a wider audience. And so that's important. That's another topic though.
So this is really excellent information. Jonas, I know that everybody probably knows about your website, but I'm going to ask you to put it in chat for everyone. And also I'm going to mention that one of the questions was related again to the editing. I like from Martina and Ben. I like that self-publishing should look professional, and I like the big 5. And how did you pay for, or did you have any difficulty paying for the professional editing, etc., in the beginning? And I just want to mention, first of all, one of the things that I've done was to join a group where they will start the editing process. But aside from that, that's a volunteer thing. But Jonas, can you give us an idea what rates are like out there?
Okay, sure. Don't let this scare you, but when I got my first edit for Dark Visions, I paid $2,500 American for one edit. This was 2004, and it was an editor in New York, a fantastic editor in New York. I paid $2,500 American for my first round. When it was done and sent back to me, those were the days when it was all, I printed it out, we mailed it. I mailed it with a check. I mean, it was all before PayPal was used, and then it was mailed back to me with the edits done in pen. I did all the edits on my computer, and then I did another round with this editor to make sure that I didn't miss anything. And the second round was cheaper. It was $2,000 American. Long story short, I paid a lot of money for editing in the beginning, and I wanted the best. Now, rates today, it's very easy to find. There's a lot of decent to good to great editors out there. Let me just tell you this one, though. This is like an old adage. You get what you pay for with an editor. So if you're paying $200, you're only going to get a $200 edit, and that's not a professional edit. Okay. Generally, it's not a professional edit. You may have a friend who's an actual professional editor and say, "Oh, just throw me a couple hundred. I'll do it as a favor." No problem. You're okay there. But generally, how it works is you get what you pay for. If you're paying $500, you're going to get a probably better quality edit. If you're paying $1,000, just vet these editors and double check them and look for their references. For instance, I've got references on my site from multiple best-selling authors who I've edited. In addition to that, interview them. I do an interview with everyone I edit. And what I would mean by interview, send them 5-10 pages. I do 5-10 pages for free. Those 5 to 10 pages will give me a chance to see what their work is like. I'm then able to quote them, because if I look at your first 10 pages and they're really clean, I've done 3 changes, you're going to get my lowest rates depending on what you're asking for. If you're looking for a developmental or just a line edit, the rates are going to be really low because it's very clean. You're just asking me to read your novel and double check it. But if there's a lot of work, then it's going to take a lot more time. It can sometimes take me up to 2 weeks to do an edit. I've done a couple that were in need of a lot of work. I'll say it that way. And my rates range from 12 to 1500 for a lot of work to 500 for a read. I've even gone a little lower for a friend who has a really clean piece. So editing rates can vary, and it really depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a proofread, it's all been edited and ready to go. And you're just looking for a proofread, those are pretty well the lowest rates. But if you're looking for a developmental and a line edit after, I can get a little pricey. Hope that helps.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Gives us an idea of the range. And I think the other thing that you had mentioned at some point was it depends how long the manuscript is. And here's another question. Do you do edits for short stories?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even if it's just a 2,000 word edit and that's it. You just email it, I do the edit and send it back. That kind of thing is it's like a $50 edit or something just for my time. It's very mild. If you're doing a whole book of short stories, well, then we're doing it by word count. And thank you, Jennifer, for bringing that up. Actually, I totally forgot. If I've done 150,000 word books, those prices do go up because it takes longer. It's really based on time, how much work's involved and how long the book is going to be. If it's 60,000 words, it's going to be cheaper than 160,000. Absolutely. Word count is definitely plays a huge role. And also one quick shout out here. Thank you, Randy, for the better link to the site. I put it's jonassaul.com, but I just quickly typed that because I'm doing this, but Randy Gray dropped the exact link.
Nice upgrade. So, perfect.
Yes.
So we're into that wonderful thing, the plotting. Are you from Rachel? She says, being a pantser, referring to yourself, can you talk about how you pull your endings together?
Oh boy. The answer is no, because I have no idea how I pulled them together. But yes, I can talk about it because as a pantser, I really don't know what's happening. A lot of times I am in the dark. See, here's the thing. Let me give you a quick synopsis, if you will, of my process. My process is, well, let's talk about The Drowning, for instance. It's a book that just came out. I don't want to talk about my new book I just wrote because no one's seen it. My editor, no one's seen it yet. So I don't want to talk about that. So we'll talk about The Drowning. So with The Drowning, I came up with this idea of it's a fictional drug, vaporized mercury in flakka. And when it's put together, as chemists put this stuff together, and he's causing these outbreaks and these ODs in a small town. And so what happens is this drug causes people to have like a zombie-like effect to them. And flakka does that. If you Google Flakka, you Google that, or you go to YouTube, you'll see people looking like zombies when they're on that. Well, the vaporized mercury ruins the lungs. And so what happens, they have this zombie-like thing and they are unable to breathe well, and it screws up with their head. And they think that the oxygen in water will help them. So suddenly this town is beset with dozens of people drowning in the lakes, in their pools, all throughout this town. And it all happens within 12 to 24 hours, and everyone's freaking out. And they end up having to lock the town down to see what airborne contagion is attacking this one little town in New York. And that's where the premise of the story came to me. And I thought, oh, this would be great. I saw a video with flakka. I saw these people on YouTube freaking out. And I was like, my goodness, how can I make this happen with that and that, the other thing? And so at the end of the day, it turns into a murder mystery. From a 10-year-old case of someone who was killed 10 years ago. And a lot of things start to happen. I didn't know half that stuff when I started writing. What happens is a lot of times when I'm doing my research, like when I researched for Immortal Gene, too, I was doing a lot of research. Research helped me create the plot. And so what happens is I'm doing some work and I'm bringing in the science part of it a little bit here. And I have to double check something. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I can have a character do this now. So suddenly the novel starts to take, because I'm a pantser, it takes a different turn to the right and sometimes to the left. Sometimes things go up, sometimes things go down, and I don't know what I'm going to write next. So at the end of the day, when it all comes together, as I'm writing, I often will know that, well, I want this guy to be alive at the end of the novel, or I know I want this person to be a hero, or this woman to do something good, and so on. So when you read The Drowning, yeah. So there's a lot of that happens, but at the end of the day, I generally don't know my endings till it happens. I've had bad guys. I don't know if they're going to live at the end, or get arrested, or die. I don't know until I'm typing. In one case, in the book called The Terror, book 18 of the Sarah Roberts series, I'll never forget. I was right down to the last paragraph, and I didn't know if the gun would go off or not. And then I just kept typing, and the gun didn't go off. And I was, oh, so that's how it ends? This is really interesting. So I generally don't know. And I think that that's really exciting. I talked about this yesterday. Stephen King said, not plotting is like strap on your seatbelt. We're going for a ride. And he has no idea many times what will happen or what will come out. And I think that that's really cool, because it surprises me, and will often be shocking. And I'll often get even goosebumps, like, oh, this is really good. And this is what the reader will feel, they'll feel that. So the endings always come together, though. And back to my earlier point, I have no doubt. I believe they will. And I just keep writing until they do. And if I haven't tied up a plot point, I'll often go back and do a little touch up to tie up a plot point. But I generally tie everything up nice and neatly.
So I guess just extenuating the question a little bit. Let's say that you're doing your pantsing thing, and you're in the last paragraph, like you said. And so you do your first draft. You said it's like a wild run through the field sort of thing. Just get her down. And then you come to the end and you finish it. And then you go back for your edits. And that's where you decide if you're keeping the ending. Is that fair?
That's a decent question. Fair, absolutely. 98% of the time, my ending stays the way it was in first draft. I don't recall, I can't think of a time where I've made significant changes to the ending. I can, but it was Dark Visions. That was my second book I ever wrote. And in Dark Visions, I made substantial changes, but that was through the editing process with an editor. Who, this is cliche, don't do that. But I was pretty new at writing at the time. But now I'm on my 43rd book. Generally, once I hit book 5, 6, 7, a lot of the endings stayed the way they were. There's some endings I regret. I regret book 4 of the Sarah Roberts series, The Hostage. I do regret the way that ended. I'm not going to change it now. I wrote it a decade plus ago, and it's been selling for over 10 years now.
So why do you regret it
now? Too much of a cliffhanger to make the reader jump into book 5 of the Sarah Roberts series, but it was too much of a cliffhanger. It was the ending deserved the ending of a chapter, so you could flip the page and continue. But I left it at. I thought that was a good model at the time, to leave a huge cliffhanger, so everyone would be gasping and saying, "Wait, what?" Scrambling to Amazon to buy book 5. And I had a number of reviews saying, "I won't be buying book 5. He's not going to hold me hostage to this cliffhanger." So I look back to that and think, nah, I won't go that hardcore again next time. So there are mistakes I've made along the way, but it didn't kill my career or something.
Wow, that's interesting. One would never guess that you could actually do a cliffhanger that was too hard. Okay, well, we have another question, and we're rolling towards the end. So this is from Caitlin. What is your daily writing routine? How do you motivate yourself to write consistently? And what do you do when you're stuck?
Okay, well, let's go backwards with this one, because when I'm stuck, I'm never stuck. I don't know how to answer that, because I've never been stuck. I've never had writer's block. I write whether I'm inspired or not. My daily routine is when I'm writing a book, I don't take a day off. I write until the first draft is done. Then I take a day off. Sometimes I take a week. Sometimes I take a month off. And during that month, though, I'm editing every day. I'm still working, but I'm working in a more lazy schedule. Sometimes I'll just work 2 hours for a day, and then sometimes I'll work 10. Whatever I feel like when I'm taking time off. But when I'm writing the first draft of a novel, I don't give myself an out. I don't give myself a day off. And I have a word count that I must hit every day. And I literally will start on a Monday, type chapter 1 and start typing. I do my word count on Tuesday, word count Wednesday, every day. And I usually tell the people in my life, hey, I'm starting a book on Monday, so don't expect me. We're not going out. We're not going to go for a 2-day trip somewhere. We're not. You want to do the 2-day trip? We do it before I start the novel. So everyone knows in my life that I'm like a sequestered jury. I am typing until the first draft is done. So I get the support that I need to. In regards to that, I don't ever give myself an out. So the word count must be met. There are many days when I'm done my word count by 2 p.m. and take a nap and relax and read the evening away. But then there are days when I don't reach my word count until 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. But I don't go to bed until my word count is done. I don't allow myself the out. Even if they're not all good words, I don't mind that because at the end of the day, when the novel's done and it's 90,000 words, when I reread that novel to make sure everything fits nice, it's all good, there's enough tension, and I look at everything. When I reread it, I'm often adding 2,000 or 3,000 words easily on a reread. In addition to that, I'll find like, oh, why did I write that? I got to delete this 3 paragraphs. They're no good. So there's many times when I pushed to get my word count done and they're not good words. Something Dwayne Clayton said in a panel last night. He said that when you have a bad day, you're not inspired, but you sit down and you type anyway, uninspired. You just, because you have to, you got to get your word count done. When you reread, you can't look back and say, was that chapter 12 I did on the uninspired day? Or was it chapter 14? Geez, I can't remember. Let me read. And when you read, you can't see the uninspired day. So that's a really good point. I never thought of it that way. But at the end of the day, I write whether I'm inspired or not. And there's been times where I said I don't get stuck because I don't get writer's block because every day I write and every day I get my word count. But there's been times when I've been stuck where I've, hovered over the keyboard with my fingers and okay, what's the next paragraph? I don't know. And sometimes it takes a half hour, maybe. Sure, I've been stuck like that then, but every day get the word count done. There's only been, in the last year and a half or two, there's been 2 times when I missed my word count. I remember logging them because I keep a log here of my words, my word count, everything. There were 2 days, and it was because I was feeling ill. I didn't feel good those 2 days. One day I was 1,200 words short of my word count. And so the next day I made it up. So if I lose one day, I pick it up the next. And if it's a big amount, I'll pick it up over 2 or 3 days, but I always pick it up.
That's a good thing to know because I think commitment is really important for scheduling. Rachel has a question in regards to all of this and kind of jumping the queue in the questions, but it's right in sync with what you're talking about. How many words do you write each day? What's your word count consist of on a daily basis?
Well, I won't go too long or belabor this point, but be careful with the number I tell you because I have spent years developing this number. I'll just quickly tell you, I started in the 1,500 words per day way back when I started. I was on book 2 and 3, and I've written 42 now. So I got it up to 2,000 words per day. And I was writing a book called The Threat. It was a standalone novel. And I was doing 2,000 words a day, thinking to myself, I'll just write every day 2,000. I was done by noon or 1 and every day and 2,000 words. And I thought, well, geez, it only takes me about an hour to write 1,000 words. And if I'm stuck or doing a little research or I'm slow, I can easily be done in time for a nice nap. And I thought, well, geez, I'm being a bit lazy here. I need to get more prolific. So I bumped it to 2,500. And finally, I was finishing quite early. So I don't work outside the house. This is my full-time job. So bear that in mind. You may have a job outside and you can't do those kinds of numbers. Long story short here, I wanted to do more. So I got it up to 5,000 words per day.
Holy.
And was researching other authors, and I found out that many authors do over 10,000 a day. Michael Crichton was known for up to 18,000 a day on some days. Who was it? Danielle Steele, I think, where she writes the novel. She sits down and writes her whole novel until it's done. And if it's 18 hours or 24 hours, she just keeps typing till it's done, the first draft. So you're looking at 60, 70,000 words until she sleeps again or something. I mean, I saw an interview with her and I was blown away by that. So what I did was I found 5,000 was a bit tough. So what I did was I decided that's it. I'm going to push all the barriers. I'm going to break every limit I've got, and I'm going to write until I'm exhausted every day and see what numbers come up. So in 2012, I was doing 10,000 words a day. So I ended up writing a novel in a week, first draft. It takes a lot of editing. I didn't just throw that back on Amazon or anything. So, but when I was done my 10,000 words a day, I was exhausted. I was exhausted mentally. I was sore from sitting so long and then standing and then sitting. It was a really, really challenging process to do 10 a day. So I thought, well, I'll never go back to 10 a day. That's too much. So I went back to 5. But I'll tell you something. When you write 10,000 words a day for a week and then you go to 5, it felt like it was a day at the park. Doing 5,000 was so easy after doing 10 a day. So I stuck with 5. So now I do 5,000 a day. My first drafts take me 12 to 15 days because I write 70 to 80 to 90,000 words. I've had a couple first drafts take me 18 days because I had a day or two off in between where I had to go out of town or something. But generally, I do 5 a day and I don't let myself off that. I don't allow myself even 10 words short. It has to be 5, 520, 550, 300. Doesn't matter what it is, but it has to pass 5. And so that's what I do.
Okay, so I've asked to stop on the questions. We've got 2 pending. I have one quick one. How many days or weeks did you do the 10,000 a day word count?
I did it for 7 days before I stopped.
A full week. A full week.
Yeah,
okay.
full week.
And good point that when you reduce, it's like a breeze almost. Eh? Okay,
Yeah.
so from Caitlin, what is your daily writing routine? How do you motivate yourself to write consistently? And what do you do when you're stuck? I think we did that one, right?
We did that one. Yeah, we did that one.
So that one's done. Okay, so we're down to 1. And 5-minute warning, just so you know, it went super fast, which doesn't surprise me. Following this from Lou again, following up on your writing process, without knowing the ending, are you aided in arriving at the end by how well you know the characters? Do you do the character sketches, etc.?
No, I never. I rarely do a character sketch because I get to know them as I write. And I'm not saying that's good advice, though. It's something I do. I didn't know my character felt this way, or I didn't know that they were dealing with a family issue when they were yelling at this person or whatever. And then I start to, oh my goodness, they're dealing with all these other things. And I start to meet my characters and get to know them as I write. And I find that quite revealing for me. But I don't know if I would recommend that. I do think that a great character sketch is important. And so I on this recent book, I did a bit more of a character sketch. So not only because this recent book was quite involved and I had a lot going on. So sometimes you have to do that. But generally I don't. I meet my characters and play with them as things go. Hope that helped.
It does. It does. And so we're in the last couple minutes. Do you have any final advice for anyone who's working on their novel or their short story, and the best tip that you can offer them?
Best tip I can offer is write. Now, I know that sounds, oh, wow, that's cliche. No, but listen, you got to write. Don't edit. Stop rereading. Stop looking at the last chapter. Don't waste any time. You've got only a finite amount of time between your jobs or your sleep or your kids or whatever. And just dedicate that to new words all the time. Get your first draft done. Then you can spend months playing with it, re-looking, editing. People get stuck. They write 20,000 words and they want, well, maybe that fast 5,000 needs it. I recommend against that. Just keep going. Just get it done. You've got to get your novel done. You can't sell a novel that isn't finished. You can't get it to an agent. You just get it done. And then, you know what? Don't forget, novels aren't ever finished. They're abandoned. So get it done and then get it out of your life. Send it to an editor. Do the edits. Send it to beta readers. Then send it to agents and just start typing another novel. I really believe that. I really think that once you get to 10 novels, you'll have an internet presence. And if this is what you want, your sales will be big enough. You don't need to work anymore. That's what happened for me. And you can't get there if you're not typing a lot.
There you go. When did you put up your author page? How long after you started?
My author page? You mean Author Central on Amazon, or do you mean my website? Everything was basically right away. It was all right away pretty well. I had a website right away. It's been modified a lot since those days. The current website I have is 4 or 5 years old, and it was designed by my graphic designer out of Denmark. He does all my covers. He used to work for a company that he created Subway Surfers and different apps and games. He's an incredible 3D graphic designer. Anything I ask for, he just creates. And so I'm very fortunate to have him. And so he does all my website. He does everything for me. So the current one you'll see is 4 or 5 years old, but everything I put up right away. I think that before you even send out your first book, publishers are going to Google your name. You need to have a website.
I thought I better mention that because I think that that's definitely under the branding and marketing. And don't forget, everyone, do invest in yourself. I think Jonas is a great example of what investing in yourself can bring you to new levels. And I just want to thank you, Jonas, for taking the time to take all our questions and for your so many wonderful, comprehensive answers.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for all your questions. Great to see you all here.